Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome on into a very awesome episode because today I've been joined by Derek, who's played Jesse Rentier in the Evil West game, which I'm really much enjoying it right now. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for saying yes, and thank you so much for being here. Hope you're doing awesome.
Yeah, doing really well. Thanks so much for having me.
That's so good. When Evil West came out, when the trailer came out, I was really excited to see how the game was. The game was kind of like I was like it's similar, but it's very different. It's very action oriented. And at the same time, God of War was also around the same time, and I was like, "This is very cool because two action games, and I really wanted to play both of them." And after God of War, this game was also there, so I was like, "This is really cool." So, after a lot of people played the game, a lot of people had really good things to say about it. What do you think about so far the reception that this game has gotten from the game?
Yeah, I think we're all really quite happy, and I think the developers and the distributors are as well really happy with the reception that the game got. The delay brought it even closer to the release of God of War, and I think
Yeah.
everybody look, when you're going head to head with the big dog, right? And I mean there was kind of no question about that, but it's a testament to the confidence that they had in the new IP, the concepts behind it, the particularly the combat
Mm.
in Evil West like my forearms hurt after some of those arenas, and not even after a boss battle. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not even the long ones. It's just the intensity that you got to play it at, and all the different options that you got to remember. And
Mm.
like we get into that later, but yeah, I'm really very happy, and really I'm really honored to be part of it as well, because like you, I saw the initial trailer at the Game Awards in
Yeah.
2020, I think it would have
I,
been,
yeah,
and
I
it
think
was
so.
middle of the night over here. Do you stay out? I mean, I suppose it's getting early in the morning for you.
Yeah,
Actually,
it
you can
would
just get up early.
the show would be around 6 a.m. the next day. So I had to wake up early. I'm like, oh, hi, hello there. I'm gonna watch this Game Awards. Wake up and but yeah, it was really fun to watch that trailer.
Yeah, and I saw it and I thought, oh, this looks really interesting. I think this is going to be really, this is going to be something really cool. And 3 months after that, the breakdown came through for, I can't remember how they described it, but it was like steampunk science fiction vampire cowboy or something. And I thought, ooh, I wonder if I know what this is. And it was one of the breakdowns. You don't always get these, but sometimes the character breakdown comes with some art
Hmm.
just up in the top corner, some concept art. And I recognized Jesse Rentier right away, and I thought, I know what this game is,
Yeah.
and I really want to get it. Um, so I think I did one meeting. This was still COVID-y time, so it was all from home. It was sort of like we're doing now. Had a meeting to do some read throughs, spoke with the writers, spoke with the director, and the performance director on our end, Jason Bond. Was happy with the meeting. Left it thinking, oh, I really want this. And then I think it took about a month, and it was one of those ones that you sort of start to forget about. And then the call comes through, and they said that yeah, they want you to play Jesse Rentier, and I was like, yes, I'm in. And yeah, and then we kind of took it from there. So
Wow. So you got to see. So it was like the it's the calling when that happened. I think that before that you did not know anything about the game when you were getting into auditioning and stuff like that. You didn't know anything about the world or what the character is gonna be.
no, so the only thing I knew what everybody else knew from the sort of the announcement trailer at the
Mm.
Game Awards, which didn't give away very much. It
Oh
didn't
yeah.
give away if it was an RPG. It didn't give away if it was an action game, anything like that. The scripts were, as they tend to be, because everything's very secretive,
Mm.
obviously, were just really concise. They could stand on their own, but they could have been read in 100 different ways. And that's the director took us through two or three different options just to see if there was variety, if I had flexibility as a performer. But they don't ever confirm, oh, that's what we're looking for. Do you know what I mean? Or, oh, yes,
Okay.
that's it, because the game is like this. Because you still don't have the job. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm,
mean? You're
mm-hmm.
still not on the team. So they're still not going to give anything away. So really, I didn't start to figure out what the game was. And this is not uncommon, until the first session, when we took about a half an hour and sat down and went through. They mentioned there were going to be arenas, there were going to be boss battles, because it sounds ridiculous, but up to that point, I didn't. This could have been a survival game. Do you know what I mean? This
Yeah.
could have been managing your inventory or crafting, or like it could have been anything. But I had played Shadow Warrior 1 and Shadow Warrior 2, so I
Yeah.
had a bit of a gut feeling that this was going to be an over the top action
Yeah.
title. I was really pleased to find out that it was third person. I know a lot of people don't like third person, or they do,
Mm.
or but I like the idea of seeing this particular character in the situations that he was in with all the gear and so many weapons and all that stuff. So the more I found out about it after the first sort of recording session, the more excited I got about it, the better I felt. And it's one of the times where I've really been looking forward to playing a game that I'm actually doing work for as well. I was really psyched about it.
That's awesome. You know, you not only got the role, you also you get to play the game. You're playing so many other games. Was video games like a thing? Like you always like you've been always playing. Like was it your favorite thing to do, or is it one of the things that you still want to continue? Like it's one of the biggest part of your life.
Yeah, so growing up, it was big. Growing up, my first system was I mean, a friend of mine had a Commodore 64. We're going way back here, by the way. A friend of mine had a Commodore 64. He had the Mission Impossible game. I think Prince of Persia, you know, those sort of PC,
Hmm.
really,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
early, really simple games. I got a Nintendo Entertainment System, the original with like Mario Brothers.
awesome.
Castlevania really captured my imagination. I like the gothic horror element. Again, really simple game. Played right up until probably the release of the first PlayStation.
Wow.
Then I got heavy into training. I moved a couple of times. I moved to New York City and I moved to London. Got heavy into theater training. Then my first sort of 8 years out of theater school were just a grind of trying to get actor work, trying to get work in the acting field, be it theater or film or whatever. Games weren't a go-to option at this point. We're
Mm.
talking about 2001 until about 2007 or 2008. And then a flatmate of mine at the time was a television producer, and he had every system, which at the time was I think 360, PS3, and Wii. I think it was
Mm.
that generation, and I think those were the three that we had. I hadn't had a console in, I don't know, 8 years or something like that, and I'd completely lost touch with everything. And there had been a big jump
Yeah.
in what games were doing in that time. And he introduced me to Alan Wake and Half-Life 2
Oh wow.
were the first two things. He was like, you gotta sit down and have a go at these. And I was like, this is amazing. Resi 4, I think, came
Oh
out
wow. Yeah.
sort of around there as well. And I was just sold. I was like, I got to get back into this. And randomly, I had done some voice work on Conflict Desert Storm back in
Oh.
2001,
Oh
which
wow.
I never played, and it was one of my first jobs out of theater training school. And years went by, and I did a couple more little bits and bobs, and then in 2008, I had done some work on a previous Crytek game, and they needed some extra American voices for Crisis 3. And I came in to do like your typical all right, team 6 move over to 8. Do
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? That
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of voice. Um, and then it just built from there. I got involved in project after project after project, and it became a viable way to make a living. So
That
yeah,
is
long story short.
that is
Yes,
amazing.
games are really important. Like I've never looked back since. I try, like I have to play, because I think you have to. I mean, I don't.
There's
Well,
no
there
other
was a
way.
time where no, there's not. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really want to get what's going on, because sometimes you're going to get given lines that if you're thinking about it in a film or a theater context, you're like, why would I say that? Like that's
Yeah.
just crazy. But in a game context, it makes sense because you have to give more information in a different way.
Hmm.
So yeah, so playing, but I also enjoy them, and I'm trying to push the boundaries of the types of games that I'm playing. I don't play enough JRPG, for example. I'm going to try and get more into them next year. So
That is
yeah.
awesome. That is awesome. I love that you got into gaming so much, and then you're into acting, and then you went towards the towards voice acting in video games, and now you're here. You're in a lead character in Evil West. It's so cool. But like when you got into all when you did all this, when you had recordings done, and when the game was out, and you know this character Jesse Rentier so much, what do you think of the guy? What do you think of Jesse Rentier so far? Like,
Um, the initial first reaction when I saw, and it would have been one of the early trailers or one of the gameplay things, and you hear, I heard my voice on this character that I know is not me. There's like this cognitive
yeah.
sort of broken moment where I'm going, what? that's not me at all, but he sounds just like me. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
bit weird. Um, he one thing that we were quick with the storytelling. We were to the point. We wanted to just get action, action, action,
Hmm.
action, but still leave an undertone there. If you're interested in looking for it, it's there. And one of the things that I'm most curious about, and I'm glad that we were able to hint at, was you meet him at this crossroads where he's being pressured by his father to take over the family business. This
Yeah,
is it's an old story, you know, these things happen.
yeah.
And he's resistant to it because he sees himself as a field agent. He wants the action. He wants he just wants the violence. But this is his responsibility. This is something he's going to have to do um, someday. And no spoilers, you know, we may get closer or further away from that, but by the end of the game. But um, I liked that they had made that. And it happens early when you're still finding your feet in the game. You
Yeah.
know, this happens before it just becomes like a wow, okay,
Mm.
action, because there's not much of a breather sometimes. The
Yeah.
cutscene will end and you're like right in there, and it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay, here we go. I liked that they had included that sort of a detail and that sort of tension between himself and his father, because it allows me to just have a little bit more to work with. And it did subtle things like when the initial read for him, I think the accent was heavier Southern,
Mm.
and I toned that down to just kind of a hint and just the possibility that there's the possibility Jesse gives off cowboy tough raised killer, and he's
Yeah.
a great killer. He's a great warrior. He's had a different upbringing though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Than a
yeah.
lot of those soldiers will have had. They call him sir. He's got a higher status than those people.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to, and I think Jason wanted to as well, just include just a little bit more of that sort of a little bit of complexity in there. Not a lot, you know, it's an action game, but that is one of the things that I hung on to, and that I'm really glad sort of came out throughout the totality of the story. You know, once you get to the end, you
Yeah,
get to
yeah.
see resolutions and whatnot.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really like how Jesse is like sort of a guy who I know is like I have that kind of personality where he grunts and where he's like I'm just getting ready to go. You know, you're taking too much time. You know, I'm just gonna go there. I'm just gonna do my thing.
Yeah,
Not so much
he's
into the tech stuff.
no. He's really, really impatient.
Yeah.
He's almost a luddite. But again, and I think that would be a weakness if you didn't include the fact that he's not playing dumb. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? But
yeah.
he does have the ability, I think, in the long run, you know, where they do extend the story or go into making another game or something like that. I think in the long run, he is the type of person that would be a genuinely great leader
Mm,
of
yeah,
the
for sure.
Institute. He'll have a hard time, and he'll be very impatient dealing with paperwork. Like I can't see him sitting behind a desk at all,
Nah.
you know, any more than you could see Kratos sitting behind a desk. Like he is of that personality, but I
Yeah.
think he'll be better at it than he thinks he will be
Mm,
um, in the long run. But yeah, the grunts are a really important part of him. We did a lot of them, and we came back and we sorry, this is sort of apropos of nothing, but you mentioned it.
oh no, no issue.
Jason was doing voice directing on Plague Tale Requiem at the same time,
Oh.
the director, and we did a lot of the loud, barky stuff to begin with, and a lot of the scenes, especially with facial capture, we were able to do. Myself and Brian Prothero, who plays Jesse's father,
Mm,
we were actually able to do that in the same room, which during COVID was just a relief to be able to. Do you know what
yeah.
I mean? It's not
Yeah.
a normal thing in the business anyway, but it was just great to play something with another actor. Um, and so their scenes are full of tension and sort of arguing with each other. But a lot of the game is this two self. Do you know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
trying to figure things out or talking. And Jason, I really do wonder if it's because he was simultaneously doing Plague Tale, because you know Plague Tale is like, oh, Amicia, and you're like, Hugo, shut up. Do you know what I mean? That tension that you
Yeah.
get from playing that game.
Yeah.
And I think Jason did a really great job of including that sort of thing, because we went from these loud bark sessions to this really low, and I know it's to self, but there's a different intensity. And I think he really led me in a way that I felt I was really happy with that when I played through the game. I thought, okay, I'm happy with those decisions that we made for those moments. And so his grunting and his two self things they became sort of a really important part of who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. I like seeing that and I know as you said it's like the same kind of not exactly the same, but it's like the story that between a son and a father and they have like this relationship is not so well between them that they don't
Yeah.
understand each other so well and all that sort. But when you play this character, was there any challenge to on playing him in this game? Was like any of the biggest challenge that you faced as you played him?
Surviving some of the bark sessions can be pretty heavy, and I had been the biggest challenge on the course of the sessions lasted probably about a year and a half,
Mhm.
almost 2 years on and off, which isn't unusual. You'll do an intense period of a couple of weeks, and then there'll be a few months. They deal with the work that you've just done, and then maybe they want to do rewrites because
Uh,
they've changed a plot point. Maybe they just didn't like your particular choices on a certain scene. Maybe there was a volume issue, like maybe when they get it into the actual animation, they realize that I'm talking like you're about 20 feet away and the guy's like right here.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And those sorts of things happen, so they have to kind of fix them. But that means that you're obviously you do it's this is everybody would know this, but this is just for people
Hmm.
that don't follow this part of the industry.
Yeah.
But it's not like a film or a theater thing where you do it all at once. It's
Hmm.
stretched out over a long period of time, so you're taking other jobs, you're doing other things. And there was one point where I had been doing some work on just some smaller character work on Dying Light 2, just as additional voices. And because that game is so shouty from one rooftop to another,
Yeah.
and I had had a bit of a break because of the slowdown with COVID. I'd done some bits in my home booth. But I got a little bit overexcited in that session. And when you're shouting, that's when I lift my voice to a slightly higher
Yeah.
register. And that's when my voice in particular is in danger of blowing out.
Sure.
And it did that. And it was gone for a good few days. And I came into an Evil West session after that. Again, we were at the point where we were kind of taking the lines down a little bit lower. So I thought, oh, this will be all right
Mm.
immediately. And of course they do. These are pros. Anybody that works on gaming at this level knows. And the engineer on Flying Wild Hogside came on to the session after about 3 minutes and said, guys, his voice sounds completely different. And no one else had noticed, really. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the people that work with your voice and are going to mix it, they'll know right away if anything like that happens. So what we had to do that day to salvage, because you don't want to lose the hours. I mean, it's expensive. You got your directors and your engineers. You've rented the studio space. You got people on the other side in Poland.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? People have set aside this time. It didn't make a difference for my voice if we were barking,
Uh-huh.
if we were shouting, like really going for it. So we decided to turn that 4-hour session into a shouting session. And when you're literally doing it because you've sort of really hurt yourself. Now it was okay because I knew that I could shift my voice back down to sort of here,
Mhm.
and that part was all still fine. It was just this upper level
Uh-huh.
that you would use for subtlety that was gone. That was the challenging session, really. That was about 4 hours of just go one line at a time, just going, okay, a lot of support from the diaphragm. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just bark it out. And I can hear some of those lines in there, and I love them because there's some of the lines where he's at his most aggressive or most stressed out, or when you're fighting a boss or something like that.
Yeah.
And he just sounds up against it. And so I'm happy that it worked out the way that it did.
Jesus
But I was a
Christ.
bit worried about it at the time.
Oh my God. I cannot imagine now how it must feel to be like, oh, my voice is not the same, and now you have to like completely turn things around. But it's good. It worked out in the end. I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing that it worked out in the end. But another thing that I know you talked about how you have to do multiple sessions, and there's sometimes rewrites and some changes that you need to probably sometimes go back to and uh, redo it again. How much was there kind of like a back and forth between what you have in the script and what you deliver? Like maybe you have something in the script and you say it something differently. Was that happening most of the time, or were you always sticking to what the script has?
So sometimes people will encourage you to loosen up the language a bit. That's happening less and less. I mean, if you go back 12 or 13 years ago, writing for games is in a very different place right now.
Oh yeah.
And the people who are writing for games they're really, really good writers, and they now know the gaming industry better. Before it was, you get writers involved, but they were just sort of learning what games were. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you would have to maybe be a bit flexible. The word that was used a lot was cinematic. And that, okay, we get what you're trying to say, but cinematic never really helped me, because cinematic is you put someone in real life on a camera and film them, and that's not what we're actually doing. So I understood the reason people use that particular note, but it never really chimed with me as a guide. And nowadays people are getting way more specific, which is really helpful as an actor. If it's like, this isn't working for me because, or this is working, let's do more of that because, and that, for me at least, everybody works differently, but that's really important. So sorry, I got off on a bit of a tangent there. We were talking about, so the Hitman series, for example, which I did a lot of, Hitman 1, 2, and 3. The great writers, extraordinary writers that every once in a while would go, I don't like how this particular phone, because you're playing all these NPCs.
Yeah.
You'll have these long phone conversations. And they would sometimes go, let's loosen that up a bit, because I like the point of it and I want you to hit every point that we've written. That's why we wrote them. But yeah, let's loosen it up. Put a couple of ands in there, break up the flow of the sentences, repeat yourself a couple of times, maybe throw in a cuss word, but we have a limit of cuss words that we can use for ratings and things like that. So in that case, yes, it is encouraged in specific instances. In general, I don't move too far away from the script. And on Evil West in particular, we really didn't. That script was what the writers wanted, and the writers were in on the session as well. So if there was a change that really needed to be made, like because there was a problem in translation, or it just didn't 100% make sense, or it was just impossible to say, which does happen occasionally, then we could make the change. And normally, I will allow them to do that. And normally your director will suggest a couple of things. They'll go back and forth. They'll adapt it on the script, because your script comes up on a screen in front of you. So it can be changed at a minute's notice. It's an Excel document usually. So we were quite strict on that script. A lot of times we are, sometimes, like I say, we aren't. But that's only if the writers want to achieve a particular thing, that they'll go, and feel free to just do this. They do say that sometimes, but most of the time I generally will go, well, look, you've written it a certain way, so you're going to want it said in a certain way. Let them take the lead. Do you know what I mean? If they want to loosen it up.
So I think it's like kind of like your, I would say, practice. Like when you have that script, you believe that it's written in that format. I think it's just best to go in that way. Rather than maybe loosening up and stuff like that. Yeah,
and I mean, if you're going to rehearse it, you may as well rehearse what's right there on your own. I mean, if you're doing your work on your own, always start there. That's 100% the best place to start, because you will assume that is what they want to hear. And again, you'll be flexible enough once you get in, or once you've done a few sessions, you'll then be flexible enough that if they do say, let's loosen it up. Let's go. We're happy with the content of this dialogue, but we want it to sound a little bit more off the cuff and more like you're talking, like you're rushing. Do you know what I mean? To a meeting, and you're sort of forgetting, and you almost get hit by a car, and blah blah blah. Then you can do that, but you have to take their lead. Because it's their script.
It's in the end, it's theirs game. They made it.
It's theirs.
You gotta go. That's
it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Well, with the recording, I know you mentioned like you have like facial capture. But was it ever a full body motion capture, or was it just
not for Jesse? No, for Jesse they had, in the majority of what I was able to see, because I did the majority of the dialogue before any final animations had come through. I did very little knowing what the game was going to look like, but I did have the original mocap photography.
Oh,
which was very helpful. So I could see the motion capture actors doing the scenes,
okay.
which obviously helps when you're going like, oh, okay, so then he takes a breath there, he slams his hand on the table or
Mm-hmm.
anything. But the facial capture was done at the same time as a lot of the dialogue, and that was a head rig,
Mm-hmm.
your standard head rig with the multiple cameras about that far away from your face, which meant I think we recorded it with multiple microphones as well. We had a head mic, we had a sort of like one of the pop mics down here, and then we had a shotgun as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So they sort of covered all bases, and then we had to go back. Look, Jesse does a lot of scowling. There's no way to get around.
Yeah.
This is like Jesse's default in his face. Do you know what I mean? And so it came, but you're in character, and it's not wrong.
Yeah,
It's just that eventually you're going to need some variety. So we did at the beginning of a session, an extra session that we put in. I think we added a few just to give them a little bit more to work with if they really needed it. We just added some nice facial flexes, different things that they could use as the animations were finishing off. And I guess we won't know. I would imagine a good deal of the facial expressions are mine, and some of them may well be from the original motion capture artist as well. And then some are probably just done by the animators. So
that's cool.
yeah, it was an interesting process. It's not. I did the full mocap for Midas in Ghost Recon, the Breakpoint, the sequel. To Ghost, because I had done his voice in the first game, and that was more of a full-on experience. That was out in Montreal, and that was T positions, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Full-on dots. And when I do some motion capture, it's amazing to walk into a studio and work with mocap artists. Like these are stunt people. These are people that used to be dancers, or they're martial artists, or they're all actors as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, the things they can do are, oh wow, just unbelievable. So I'm really in awe of I've done quite a bit of it, but I would probably never put myself in the pool with people that are legit, mocap artists. So this was just the right amount for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just the right. I can focus on the facial expressions, and we can pick things up.
So you think that you like the facial capture more than like the full body motion capture? If you had these two options, I think you would go with the one that you did in this game.
No, I just think I would love to do a full performance capture. I just think I'm better at one thing than the other. I just think I'm stronger. I've spent a good amount of hours doing the voice side and the facial capture side. Facial capture it tends to get done quite a lot nowadays because it's a lot easier to do than it used to be, and you may as well if you've already got the person. I mean, you can see while I'm talking right now, I use my face a lot, and like we all do. So you may as well capture that information while it's there. I mean, so that's usually used as a base guide. What we did with Evil West was, no, we full on were capturing that properly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, but a performance capture, I know you had Danielle Bazzuti on. Her performance is extraordinary. And I'm talking about the first game. I haven't played the second one. But the subtleties she gets, and I'm no spoilers for a game from 2018, right? But when she makes her turn, when she gets upset, when she gets angry, at the end of that first game, they captured a legit brilliant performance, and that takes a lot. So that's the talent of the performer, and she's the real deal. If anybody watching this hasn't watched that interview, they should watch it. She's extraordinary.
Yeah, she is.
But the crew around that and the tech and the advances that we have to be able to capture a performance like that. Oh yeah, I'd love to, but it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's not in my wheelhouse yet. It would be my first. It would be my first time doing a full performance capture like they did for Red Dead Redemption. Do you know what I mean? Or God of War or Tilu 2. All of that is, it's exciting. It's amazing to think that we can do it now. But I'm more of a voice, and my captures tend to be more facial.
did you ever got to see like some of the cutscenes from the game when it was out? Like, I don't know if you have got to see most of it, or did you get to see any of the scenes when the game came out? Was that ever a thing, or do you like maybe now that you have the game, then maybe now you've seen it?
I've seen them all because I played through. I'm on a Game Plus replay now.
Damn.
And the first time I saw, I spent probably about the first year looking at the original mocap footage.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe 6 or 8 months before launch, I started to get some references saying, okay, look, this is what the final scene's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
This line doesn't work because you can see why now. Do you know what I mean? You're too far away, or your performance just doesn't quite match what we've got him animated as doing. Pardon me. So that's when I started to see them. Yeah, probably about 6 or 8 months beforehand, and then we would go in and sort of fix any issues that we had. We still had, I think there were some that were still finishing animation where we just got a really good description of why a particular line didn't work in a cutscene, and we just had to work around it. Normally you'll give 3 or 4 variations so long as they fit within. That's one of those times where if they say this line has to be 2.5 seconds long, it has to be 2.5 seconds long,
because that's how long it has been done as an animated
that's
show.
yeah. And I mean, they can make adjustments on the animation side, but it's just easier to say the line faster or a bit slower, so you might as well do it.
Yeah. Was it ever weird to like listen to your own voice from the game?
Yeah. It was really odd, and I've done it before. I guess. I mean, player character wise, I've only played player characters 2 or 3 times, and I played a lot of supporting roles, like in Control or Ghost Recon, like I mentioned before, where I didn't have that much of a. I don't know, just an inability to marry my voice to a character. Langston in Control, for example, that is my face. I mean, they've put his hairline back and they've made him bigger and older, I hope anyway, but it's my face. So when I hear my voice come out of it, it wasn't as weird. But Jesse's just this amazing dude. I mean, he's so cool that it was. Yeah, I was a bit like, I just can't. I just know that that's not me. Like that. And it was funny because I think one of the senior producers, probably from the distributor as opposed to the developer, was in on a session at one point and was listening to the lines we were doing. And he said, all I can picture you as right now is Jesse Rentier. And I said, what do you mean? He was like, no, like I can picture what you look like. And I was like, oh, mate, you're in for a disappointment. if that's what you think.
Oh man.
But yeah, it is odd, and it can be. I think that was the first time. It was such a sizable role, and I spent playing the game. I spent so much time. You spend all your time with that character.
Yeah.
That I got used to it after a while, but it was more so than if I played a supporting role and I just pop in and pop out. I mean, you say I play a supporting role though as a dragon or a robot or something. I also don't have that problem because they're not real things. But Jesse was this real protagonist in front of me, and he was talking with my voice, and that was a bit odd. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, was it ever a thing like where you when you're listening to your voice or you just watching your scenes, is it ever a thing like where you see it and you kind of like judge yourself like, oh, I didn't do this right, or this was wrong, I'm doing horrible? Was this is over judgment and all that stuff?
Yeah, all the time. And I over the years I've learned to curb the I'm terrible. I had a friend, a very good actor who's done really well for himself as well. I won't say his name, but he used to come. We were doing a show together one time, and he used to come up to me and go, "Derek, I am a terrible, terrible actor." And I was like, "Dude, you're not. You're a great actor. Just don't worry about it." And I'm glad he's had all the success that he's having right now. But I've learned to step on that particular beast. But it's there. It's always there going, "You're awful. You're awful." That's fine, because it is important to know when you've not hit it. Do you know what I mean? It's important to know when you missed a moment. It's important to know when you missed a tone of an entire scene. You have to know that because you have to make those adjustments. And if it's too late to do it in this project, you dang well better be able to do it in your next one.
Yeah.
But if you give in to the voice that says I'm bad, that's not helpful at all.
Yeah.
That's not, we all make mistakes. We all make bad choices. If for whatever reason, we just misunderstood something, or it's constantly throughout anything I've ever done. If I'm leaving a live show in the theater, or if I'm playing a game that I've done a voice on, I will constantly be going, no, I wish I could do that again. Oh no, blah. But you have to keep it in the, I'm learning from this and I won't make that mistake again sort of way. Then it's useful.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're just beating yourself up about it, nah, it's just second rate stuff. It's not worth sweating about, because the hardest thing about game acting is that you don't know what's going on. You don't, like, you show up on day one and I've done jobs that were set in space and I didn't know until I was standing in front of the mic like this. Do you know what I mean? Everything is very secretive.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be. It's the type of industry where you develop something for anywhere between 5 and 10 years. And you got to keep as much of that plot and that story to yourself as possible. So you're working on the fly, but hopefully you have to trust your director. You have got to trust your voice director, because they have a lot more information than you do. And so hopefully you manage to put together, the right vision of what it is, and you're going to get the right tone. And again, your voice director's worked with all, say, 10 or 30 other actors that are involved, and he knows how loud people are talking. He knows the sort of vibe they're going for. He knows if they're being comedic. He knows, and he, she, sorry, I shouldn't just keep saying he, that's ridiculous. But, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have access to that information that they have. So yeah, you're coming at it with a particular, like a handicap that will be, sorry, again, I got a bit diatribe there, didn't I? I apologize.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm just really thinking about it now, and it's, you have to, you just have to give yourself a bit of a break if you miss the boat on small things.
Yeah. I think it's really important, and I do that a lot, where I'm like, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm making or doing, and when it's out or when it's done, and I always feel like, oh, this, I probably could have done this better, and I feel bad about it a lot. And then I ask people, like, and say the same thing, like, I've not done this well, and like I always depend on someone to say, like, hey, you have done it well, instead of me like thinking about, like, you have done your best, whatever things that you've done wrong, just you just see it, mark it out, and then maybe the next time you try not to do it and try to be better at it.
Exactly. And that's it. You just sort of take step by step by step. And there's always going to be something that surprises you, even if you're the most prepared for something. Like, and I find this with auditions as well. Evil West audition, for example, when we came in, I sent a couple of emails saying, so this is audio only, right? And they were like, yeah, it's audio only. So I set up my thing thinking there was going to be no camera. So I was sort of on an angle. There were no lights. I had one of my audio baffles sort of behind me. It just looked ridiculous. And then Jason says, hey, let's get the camera on. Take a look at you. And I was like, oh no. God. Really? I really wanted the job. And like I say, we ended up having a good meeting, but it stuck in my head. I was like, I'm not going to get that job, because I just didn't think to go, maybe they will want to see me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's a bit of a rookie mistake, but there will always be some sort of surprise when you're having a meeting for a job, or there will always be something that's not quite right, or something that you weren't quite prepared for. And what you have to do is just take it in the moment, move with it as well as you can, sell what you did well. Do you know what I mean? And just try not to feel too bad about it, because you will, in this, and it's the same in your business. There's always going to be some little lurking beast waiting to surprise you with some little thing,
all the time. I think it's better to be prepared, but it's better to not beat up like yourself too much about it when things are not that perfect, because they will never be perfect.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? I just love the fact that you play so many games, and you're looking forward to, you've been in so many support characters before in the games that I love. Like you said, Control was a game I loved so much. You played a character over there. You're now in Evil West. What is there a game that you look forward to, that you want to be? I want to be a part of this game so much. Is there a game like that you want to be a part of?
Yeah. But anything by Bethesda, I'm I can't. I'd love to be in Skyrim, not Skyrim, like ESO, Elder
Elder
Scrolls.
Scrolls.
I would love that. I've spent so many hours playing those games, and I bought Skyrim like 900 times. Bought it in VR, bought it on the Switch, bought it on the 360 and the One and the X series, and every anniversary that comes out. Yeah. I because I love playing those games. And I guess one of the things that I like about those so much is that you are your character, right?
Mm,
Like in those types of games where you
yeah.
create your character, you can see them, you're what they look like, and they strangely enough they don't have a voice.
Hmm.
There's no audio for the player character
Yeah.
in those, and
Mm.
for whatever reason, I feel like it allows me to just drop myself in there more and all of the lore and everything. Yeah. Oh, and I think they have so many because the worlds are so vast.
Oh
There
yeah.
are so many strange people that you come across in their games that they would be fun to play. I want to play a Khajiit uh, thief or something like that. That's one. And I'm lucky enough as well because like I think I said earlier, Alan Wake really got me back into gaming. I thought the narrative on that game was extraordinary, and I do work quite a lot with Remedy, and I really count myself as fortunate because I always look forward to their games.
Yeah.
But then that kind of the longer I'm in the industry, the more I look forward to pretty much the games of most of the people I get to work with. I get to
Mm.
work with like Ubisoft, IO Interactive, I'll stop there because I've got a Flying Wild Hog, obviously, but these are all great. Everybody I work for there's nothing disappointing about any of them. The quality of the games that they're making, the visions that they're trying to achieve, are really really exciting. And I just think going forward, gaming it's been, let's be honest, it's been getting the response that it deserves for a few years now. It's no longer the underdog
Mm.
that people aren't taking
Yeah.
seriously. But
100%.
I'm happy that that's the case. I'm happy it's getting the recognition that it deserves, and I look forward to playing so much. I bought WWE 2K22 the
Oh
other day.
no way.
It
That's
was
so
on
cool.
sale. I haven't played a wrestling game in seriously 30 years since like the
Oh
Super
wow.
NES. And
Oh
so
wow.
it's not just the gap and not just the fact that I probably only know about 70% of the wrestlers. There's a bunch of new ones on there that I'm not familiar with. But the mechanics on it are, and people that play these games all the time, they're going to be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So here's the caveat. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm playing the game and I'm really loving it. It's fun to get into, you know,
Yeah.
and it reminds me, that was something I used to enjoy quite a lot when I was younger as well. WWF, WWE now, but
Mm.
that it's just it's good in sports games. And
Yeah.
I play Madden, I play NHL. Yes, everybody complains every single year when they come out. They're like, they didn't fix this, they didn't do that, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, but still they're so great.
Yeah.
They're so great. They're such a great way to, have fun. So yeah, there's a lot I'd love to be involved in, but yeah, Bethesda comes to mind for sure.
That's cool. You mentioned WWE, and I actually watched WWE for a long time and still watch it to this day. Not so regular, but I still watch it to this day. I have the game
Right.
myself. When the game came out, I just wanted to
Yeah.
get it, and it's so fun playing it. It's just so fun, controlling those characters. And actually, what I did is I would build my own kind of like a sort of company, and then make characters, and then run like a kind of like a universe around
Is that
it.
the My GM mode? Is it My
Yeah,
GM or
yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah. My GM is also there. My GM is like a very kind of like running your Raw or SmackDown show. With
okay?
selecting a general manager, like there are 4 general managers that you can select, and then you have the same superstars that the game has, which is
Right.
also fun to do. Like it's a very like basic one, but it's like it's very fun. But I also would just go to a universe mode and just create random characters just by myself, and then add them in
Yeah.
a show that I create, that I name it and everything, and I may name my
Right.
own pay-per-views and all that stuff, and just they go through storylines and stuff like that. So I did all of that. It was very fun to do. So I'm happy that you got WWE
Yeah, but
2K20.
I mean, how cool is it to be able to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember playing wrestling games that were like 16-bit. You had a choice of like 8 wrestlers,
Yeah.
and this is before licensing as well. So none of
Mm.
the wrestlers had names like Mick Rare. Do you know what I mean? Or like Bulk Logan, or like they were all like fake sort of ripoffs on what they were. And now you can literally I created my own guy the other night.
Wow.
And you can you can go through all, they allow you to use the animations for all the, all the guys that exist. Then there's some general animations if you want to sort of have one that's more original. Sorry, I don't want to turn this into an advert for WWE 2K, but I just wasn't expecting. It was not something I would ever have bought, and I bought it, and I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. So
That's amazing. That's awesome. Uh, uh, Going back to the Evil West a little bit, like I know, like I love the world of this game, and the story, how it's going towards a lot of characters that I've now known where I am right now. They're getting interesting, and I like how there's a small relationship building with all of them. When you're shooting all this, is there any, if you remember, is there any memorable kind of direction that you got when you were going through all the shootings?
yeah, there was a bunch of different ones. When from the first meeting, strangely enough, the concept of Lethal Weapon came up. This 80s action franchise movie like Buddy Cops.
Oh,
And it was interesting to watch that sort of change as it never changed completely. I think there's a good relationship between Jesse and Edgar. And they do banter a little bit. Neither of them are laugh riots though. I mean,
yeah,
Edgar's scary, man. Yo,
yeah.
he is tough. Like Jesse's tough, but I'd love to see Edgar become a playable character, to be honest with you. And if you could, do you know what I mean? In the dual play, if you could have one playing as Jesse and one playing as Edgar, I think that'd be amazing. But anyway, that's their stuff to worry about. But so we tried to maintain a bit of that banter, but it was about, I think it was Jason, it might have been Maria, talking about sort of the light versus the dark, and trying to keep, it's basically in context. Someone was saying, this is a game. We can do whatever we want around it, and we can frame particular moments in many different ways. And we're trying to give people, we're giving them a lot of different locations. We're giving them a ton of different combat options. We're giving them a good variety of enemies to kill. We don't want to lean too heavily into one, either a comedic take on this, where you get into a little bit more like Lo Wang Shadow Warrior territory.
Yeah.
Although that's insane violence, but it's still, he's quite tongue in cheek. But we can't go too dark. We want this guy to just be just straight, kind of down the line. And it just made me think of having that conversation. I haven't given a quotable response to that, and I apologize for that. But it was a deeper conversation that we actually had. Clint Eastwood came to mind, and Clint Eastwood in those old spaghetti Western movies, who should have been a first port of call really in a game like this. But you think about him, he barely opens his eyes.
Yeah.
He just sort of whispers absolutely everything. And that we ended up there again, we still had a buddy cop sort of thing that we wanted. So we were able to loosen him up a bit. And I think he does have some moments where his sense of humor does come through. And we know, we talked about before, his impatience certainly comes through. But yeah, through that conversation, so it wasn't just one piece of direction, but it was about finding the tone, the overall tone of who this guy was going to be. And I don't read many reviews because I don't think they're always terribly helpful, but I think it's good to be able to read them and not like just go, oh, and get really upset about them. And one that I kind of pondered a lot was, someone said, I wish the game had leaned a little bit more into the campness of its situation. And I kind of thought, that's interesting. And because, you do sort of, sometimes you're sort of playing, should we be going, do you know what I mean? And really ripping into it. But then you're kind of playing Bayonetta. So that's a bad example because she's so unique.
Yeah.
You're not playing Evil West. So it was a lot of just sort of trying to find a balance and a nice sort of through line. And I think we really did manage to do that well. And I probably wouldn't do it any other way. And I thought about other things that we could have done, or other ways that it could have been approached. I'm personally, at least, it's all a matter of taste if you're playing it or if you're making a game. But personally, I played it through and I was happy with, I believe we achieved what we wanted to achieve with that character and with that team and with that storyline. And I'd love to do more. I really hope they do another one of these.
Well,
I
I'm
love him.
really
I love Jesse Rentier, man. He's great.
he is really good. I think he's a really badass character. I'm hoping that there is a possible sequel, another game that we could go through Jesse Rentier, because I really like his, I don't know if you can say his gloves.
Oh, the
I think,
Gauntlet.
yeah, the gauntlet. There you go.
Yeah,
Words.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love his gauntlet. Love just punching people. So it's really fun. Using all the items that he has, all the weapons that he utilizes. And it's I suck at the weapons sometimes, but like it's really fun overall to like just explore his
You
world and play it.
you have to remember, and I struggled with this a little bit over the first sort of 3 or 4 levels. It was up to the point where I got the crippling rod, which is that sort of
Mm,
crucifix
yeah.
electrifying weapon. That was a point at which I got that weapon, and I then didn't use it for, I think, like a whole chapter, because
Oh
I
wow.
and that was when I thought, okay, I need to just move from one option to the next. And that's the
Mm,
best thing about the game. It's one of those ones where you got to keep moving or you're
yeah.
finished. You got to keep moving and keep being aggressive or you're done. You will not survive. There's no taking a break.
Mm,
And it took me a little while to get my head into swapping, constantly swapping. I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to use that. Now I'm going to use this.
yeah.
Once you get into that sort of habit, and it only just takes maybe one or two, a couple of arenas, and you force yourself to get out of your comfort zone as a player, or if you've fallen into, I'm going to drag you with the gauntlet and then I'm going to beat
Yeah.
you, and you just do that over and over. If you break that habit, you get into using the boomstick, using the rifle. That is when the combat for this truly takes off, and
Mm,
that is when I was really hooked. When I reminded myself, look, I've got to start using all these different options. Um, yeah, uh, um, that's 100% the best thing
yeah.
about that game is just taking advantage of all the different options that you have in
Yeah.
combat.
It's so fun to like have those so much intensity in this action. It just keeps on going and going,
Oh,
and
so intense, isn't
so
it?
intense, so quick, and
It's
so many
so
things.
intense.
And yeah, it's so many things happening at the same. Like you have like your revolver, and then you have your rifle, and then you have your punching, and then you have to drag people in, go to that person.
Yeah.
It's so many things, and I love that. It's such action packed, and I enjoyed it so much. And in the end, I would say thank you so much for being here and talking about all Evil West, talking about the character of Jesse Rentier. It's so fun. I love the world. I love what they have made. I love how you performed as Jesse. And I cannot wait to see if there's a sequel. Hopefully there is.
Neither can I.
I would love to play that whenever that comes out. And if anybody has not tried that game, I think you should definitely take a look and give it a go. I think it's a very wonderful game. Really action packed, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I think I'm really enjoying it as well. So I think you should definitely give it a try. But yeah, thank you so much for coming here, Derek. This is really cool. Getting to talk to someone who was the main character in Evil West. So happy that you got to do this.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for asking me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Again, you guys can follow Derek in his social medias. His link should be down in the description, and get to know what he has. Actually, he has done so much work, and I'm super pumped to see what he can do, what he will be doing next in the next project. So all the best on that, actually.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.